But
I'm here with Dane. We're going to go over some of the recent developments and volcanoes, Kilauea, Mauna Loa. Mauna Loa first. I did want to mention that we did put out a USGS compilation of what's happening so far this year from their presentations, Volcano Awareness Month, which is great and has lots of information. We're not going to cover all that stuff. We're going to talk about what's changed since then, what's really new, the newest thing in the last few weeks here in the volcano.
Right, we will review that video a little bit, like brief little clip of it, and we'll leave a link to the link in the comments below, so you'll be able to navigate to that video, be able to find out the recent developments on Kilauea and Mauna Loa from USGS themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we can start off with Mauna Loa, perhaps.
All right, let's do it.
And the story of Mauna Loa, is there's still been no long-term change. There've been some recent earthquake flurries that have been catching everyone's attention, but really, we'll get to that. To start off, basically, there's been no long-term change. The formation and seismicity hasn't really changed much in the last few weeks, but there has been consistent inflation of the volcano, still shown on a GPS signal and some of those other signals that hasn't really changed, but it's still filling with magma deep underground.
Right. So we're looking at today, right here, the most recent HVO update on Mauna Loa put out today. And you can see most of this hasn't really changed that much. There is one little nuance that we'll get into is separate flurry. See right there. We'll get into this one and explain that a little bit. But yeah, we're still, so let's get into the data a little bit more.
Yeah, so maybe we should look at the GPS to start. Here on the USGS page, so you can look at the past 5 years here page on Mauna Loa, and as we scroll down past the earthquakes, you can kind of see that earthquake counts are still kind of high in a multi-year view, but once we zoom in, after we look at the GPS plots, perhaps we can kind of see that things haven't really changed a whole lot. So yeah, there they are. Yeah, so past year and the past 5 years on Mauna Loa. This is a summit. Distance across the summit. There's 2 stations, one on each side of the summit of Mauna Loa, and this is one of their measures of how much the summit is swelling, is how far these stations spread apart.
Right.
And so it's been kind of increased ever since essentially post 2018 eruption in Kilauea. Yeah, maybe slightly sped up a little bit a year after that in 2019, but it's kind of still climbing fairly constantly, fairly consistently, right? And that's expected. We know at some point there will be an eruption there, but it's not coming up anytime soon, right? In fact, on the video, Frank, does say that, that the takeaway point is that an eruption is not imminent. So that's just something to reinforce here now. Eruption like Mauna Loa is not imminent.
Right. So right there, that little line, you can see the end of the 2018 eruption. Then we start getting on to this inflationary trend again. And somewhere in here is where USGS bumps it back up to yellow from green. They downgraded it from a yellow advisory level from 2015 to 2017.
Right.
So in here.
Right. Yeah. As it slowed. Yeah.
Right. And then we were still in it. And then during the 2018 eruption, that ended. And then it picked back up.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So as far as the last 2 years, really not that big a change. Maybe a little bit, but definitely not in the last year. The rate maybe got slightly steeper at the end, but barely. It's it's arguable, perhaps, and even in fact. So we have an INSAR image also that's been released by the USGS that shows the whole island, right? Including Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, Kilauea, right? There's a good explanation of this on the video that Frank does as well, right? One thing he points out is Mauna Kea has these color rings. So some of these color rings that you see are due to atmospheric effects, So actually only the butterfly pattern near Mauna Loa summit is the true signal right there. Yeah, right there. That's it. And then the ones on Kilauea as well are pretty easy to see around the summit and on the East Rift Zone as well.
Yeah,
labeled
so
A, B, and C.
East Rift. Got some summit 1, so I put it right on the thing.
Yeah, right in there. Yeah. So that's kind of showing the same patterns, right? Both mountains are still kind of swelling a little bit, and the rate on Mauna Loa doesn't seem to have been changed, right? It's still kind of going, maybe slowing a little bit, but nothing that we really can see convincingly in the data.
Right. All right, so looking at some of the more recent trends on Mauna Loa.
Well, so I wanted to show the 1 year earthquake map just to kind of show us the pattern of how many the earthquake counts, right? So that we can see if all these earthquakes that we're having, underneath the summit region, independently from what's happening off on a flank, how that's actually looking, right? And we basically still see the sawtooth pattern that Frank described. Yeah. So even though we have at the right end of that graph, a little peak, you can see that we've had a valley of two different weeks there, that it really dropped off again. So that's kind of just showing that while the volcano is adjusting, it's doing it in fits and starts, and it's not really a long, steady, like a long, steady, imminent buildup for something
like that
we would expect if we're gonna, for example, expect that ESGS could get some kind of alert or upgrade the color or the warning even further. So nothing to worry about for now. It's still the bottom line, right? So do we want to play the video of Frank talking about the...
Well, let's look at first what's happening, and then we'll talk Frank.
Okay.
So this is kind of one of the little trends that has happened recently. This is a little flurry of about 70 earthquakes that's happened off the flank of off of the east of Mauna Loa, of the summit. Mm-hmm. And these are interesting quakes. They look somewhat alarming initially just because of the depth, but this is actually a well-known fault that will show.
Right.
You want to show that now? Might as well show that now.
Yeah. So we'll first talk about what you're showing on the screen right here. Right. This is a post on Facebook that someone pointed out that it looks like the yellow earthquakes on that plot look shallower than the orange earthquakes, right? And we actually had a chime in from USGS seismologist Brian Shiro, who pointed out that the orange ones have not been reviewed, and that naturally the computer calculates those too shallow. So he expects those orange group will drop down to the same level as the yellow group. And so it's not actually a shallowing pattern, which if it was truly a shallowing pattern, that would be something of concern, but that's not actually what's happening here. And we're thankful to have the seismologist part of our community to share that with us, and make sure that everyone doesn't panic about what's a known fault over there, right?
Right. So how do we know what makes it kind of a known fault? Well, let's look at this map that we put together. So you can see the big island here. Then we overlaid some earthquake history. Yeah,
this is a figure from Matsuda et al., and it's 2013 was it?
13, yes.
2013, yeah. And what we've done is overlaid it onto the Big Island map here, and superimposed upon it are the current earthquakes. So we can kind of zoom into that Mauna Loa swarm right there. And you guys can see all those little yellow dots. Those are the earthquakes. Maybe not every single one, because those very small ones don't always show up. But what you see below that in the red, that's a compilation of earthquakes that's been improved, right? Improved from what shows on a website instantly. They've gone back and kind of recalculated and found this series of fault lines, right? That kind of are a little bit deeper there at that southeast end, and get a little bit shallower in the northwest end. And so having these earthquakes kind of around sea level, 3 to 4 to 5K below the volcano's flank, the surface of the volcano, is not surprising, because there's a known fault there, right? And that fault is part of a larger system. If we zoom out, that little red patch, right, is part of a larger, almost like a triangular region right there, that is, essentially the Kauiki fault zone, is a large part of the middle of that right there.
And then wherever you want to take that top part.
Right, and that accommodates that. That's kind of the flank of Mauna Loa. That's kind of leaning on Kilauea to its southeast. So as Kilauea adjusts, which it did a lot last year, then that zone of Mauna Loa is the one that we also expect to adjust. And so there have been historical bigger earthquakes in that fault zone that kind of, foretold of bigger things to come at the summit. But these small, shallow earthquakes, at that upper fault are not that.
Right.
This is not what we're looking for to kind of anticipate that things are ramping up. This is basically an adjustment.
So what does an eruption look like? Well, Frank Truesdale has a little bit of information for us. So let's go ahead and just roll this real quick. Let's make sure we got sound. I think we're good. We're not.
Clickety click. Get the sound on for you guys.
Oof.
It's not coming on?
No, we're not getting sound, I don't think, through.
I'm not getting sound through there.
No. Not getting sound through the desktop at all right now for some reason.
Technical issues, you guys?
Technical issues. Well, basically, you want to explain kind of what he explains here? We can just let it...
Yeah, sure. To paraphrase, essentially, he's showing that the earthquake average right there, I think it's about 100 earthquakes a week, right? He's showing that some weeks have 100 earthquakes and some don't. And it's kind of going in this kind of sawtooth pattern. It's high, then low, then high, then low. And what you'd expect for an erupting volcano is for the line to kind of get higher and higher and higher and higher, progressively up and up and up and up. Kind of the blue part of it, ignoring the red line, which is kind of a...
Right, cumulative.
Yeah. So that's essentially it, right? The gaps, right? The slowdowns in between the buildups are kind of what gives it away as not the event that we're looking for. So as long as, having earthquakes just 100 or so, in this case, maybe 140 in a week,
right.
kind of thing, is noteworthy, right? But he's talking about we should be measuring earthquakes on hundreds per day, not hundreds per week.
Right.
And if we get to hundreds per day, then we can be talking more seriously about this. Where are they? How constant are they? And where do we go from there? Right. So yeah, that's kind of where Frank left it off.
Right.
There's a lot more great information on that talk that is included. We'll put the link in for you guys because yeah, he really lays it out, and I really can't tell any better than that. The only thing that's new since that is kind of this flurry of earthquakes that we just showed you guys on that superimposed map, right?
Right.
So the other thing, maybe we can go to the live earthquakes map and point out where that fits in, right, from the HVO page, or perhaps, yeah, that one works as well. So here it is, earthquakes.usgs.gov, earthquake.usgs.gov. And Dane's fixing up the settings here for us so that it looks a little easier in the eyes. And you guys can see here on our island, they're zooming in to Mauna Loa Northeast Rift. That's that flurry of earthquakes that we're talking about, right? And, that's what the USGS update actually said, about separately at shallow depths, a flurry totaling about 70 small magnitude earthquakes is what's in there.
Right.
And then a separate 70 earthquakes happening underneath the summit. That's where our 140 number more or less comes from.
Right. So 70.
Yeah.
Those are bad numbers, but those are 70s.
Yeah. So yeah, we zoom out, you can kind of see what else is happening in the island earthquake-wise. And that is, most of the earthquakes are down in Pahala. We still have some around Kilauea. Actually, Kilauea is pretty quiet and slow on this particular view, right? Not a whole lot going on there. So talking about Pahala, we fortunately have an expert talking on camera about what's going on down there. We don't? Oh,
no, we got you talking on camera.
We don't have the sound anymore.
Yeah, the sound's not happening right now. We're having issues with that.
Yeah. Well, I haven't listened to this in a little while, but you can kind of try to
trying to remember.
Trying to paraphrase what he's got going on here. But essentially, this is an area where these earthquakes under Pahala are very, very deep. These are earthquakes that have been happening. This is paraphrasing what Brian has said at multiple events, right? Those earthquakes have been there as long as we've had a seismic record. It's just the rate of the earthquakes has gone up, and it first went up around 2014 and 15, and actually it seems like it's gone up from our anecdotal perception maybe in 2018 after the eruption or during the eruption. It seems like it ticked up again, or perhaps re-picked up again, or so something's happening there. We're not quite sure, but that region is one that's been active, and it's thought to be connected to the pipeline of magma that feeds from the hotspot into Kilauea and as well into Mauna Loa. And if you actually have an improved view of these earthquakes, they might actually see that there is not just one giant shotgun pattern of them, but some smaller areas. You maybe even see like there's like a black zone, right? And like clusters of earthquakes that are kind of separate over there, and so those might be different parts of that conduit pipeline, that pattern of flow, and one goes more towards Mauna Loa, one towards Kilauea. And so we expect the volcanoes, as they're filling in, the magma is going through there, and it's basically resonating, shaking the walls of that conduit. And why are there more earthquakes now than before if it's been doing that the whole time? Well, perhaps it's got something to do with the fact that during the middle of 2018 eruption, we saw these things apparently uptick. Maybe we loosened the tooth a little bit there. Now it just wiggles every time the magma goes through there a little bit more than before. And so it's just consistently putting out this signal, which it could have been doing the whole time, except that we're now living in a post-2018 summit collapse, especially
right.
Of Kilauea situation.
So a very complex area. slightly independent of each of the characteristics that we see on Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, or Mauna Loa, Kilauea.
Yeah, and as Dane likes to say, the word deep means it's something different over there, right?
Right.
How deep is deep? Right?
Deep in Pahala is pretty deep, whereas you talk deep in Kilauea, completely different
Right.
topic.
Right. 2-3 times as deep, right? Like,
Yeah.
in a range of 20 miles, 30 kilometers, somewhere
Right.
plus.
So the word deep is highly variable.
Yeah. So, magma is going to Kilauea as well. We can talk about Kilauea a little bit next. On Kilauea, there hasn't been any major change as well. The USGS update talks about that, and especially volcanic, there's not a whole lot of change. The same things happening before are still going on now. There are still deflation inflation events happening at the summit. There were 9 last month, and that's thought to reflect filling and some process happening within a shallow magma chamber under Hawai'i Island, right? The one that was partially collapsed during 2019 eruption. That must still be there because the thing is still pumping deflation inflations, right? It's just different shape and different arrangement and depth than before, probably a little bit. Right, but that's still there.
These deflation inflations just tick, 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 tick. There's a lot of them in a month right now.
There they are, yeah. I think I might have counted 10, but they said 9. We crossed the month, that's why.
And there's one here. You missed one.
Right. So yeah, that's that. That's still going on, right? And that's a pattern that's interesting. We don't really know where else to go from now.
Right. Basically, it's steady as she goes right now. This is what background Kilauea looks like. And the funny thing about it is that Kilauea background level still has an incredible amount of movement in it, right? Mm-hmm. So when we were talking, USGS put out that INSAR image of the entire island. Mm-hmm. We're looking at that, it was, okay, Mauna Loa is swelling. It's yellow, right? So each characteristic, what is yellow, what is green, what is normal, what is an advisory. It's all defined based upon that one volcano, basically, relative to what that one volcano's history is. Right. So on Mauna Loa, we had less than 3 millimeters or 3 centimeters of, what's this, millimeters, centimeters? I can't remember.
I think it was centimeters.
Centimeters, yeah. I think it was centimeters. 3 centimeters of uplift, right?
At the summit, right?
At the summit.
Warrants a yellow.
And that warrants a yellow. Meanwhile, at Kilauea, we're at green, and it had something at the Kilauea summit like 30 to 40.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Let's pull it up. Let's just pull it up. Let's just pull it up.
The East Rift was 10 to 15, so definitely some big numbers.
So let's just navigate there like we normally would. Show people how we would get there. So we're going to Mauna Loa. Oh, no, we're going to Kilauea. Sorry. Brain fart.
Yeah, so another shortcut there that Dana's showing you guys to get to Kilauea.
Right. Then we're going to go monitoring.
Yeah. And then go back to, we want to look at last year, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay, scroll down, and so in last year, the left edge of the graph is at minus 0.2 at the summit, and the top end of the graph is at plus 0.2 meters. That's 40.
Right. Oh, yeah. So really what we're wanting to look for, though, is the multimedia releases. So we're going to go multimedia releases. We're going to come down here.
Oh, you're
and this is where we're going to find it.
Okay.
So 2.8. Let's get the pin out.
Yeah, because the other distance I was just showing you guys is a distance across Caldera, and Dane is talking about uplift in particular.
Right. Boom. That's 2.83 centimeters of uplift. Mm-hmm. Right. And we're looking at Hawai'i Mau. These are really rough circles. Very ugly circles, but 40 centimeters.
Yeah.
15 inches of uplift. And that's normal. That's background.
That's a green volcano.
That's a green volcano.
Right.
That changes a foot
and that
in a year.
17 centimeters at Pu'o'o as well.
Right.
Just below there, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, just because, things are quote-unquote quiet volcanically doesn't mean the ground isn't still shifting and recovering and adjusting and all that. And even though we haven't had that many South Flank earthquakes in the last week or two, those are something we still expect to happen. They have happened already this year, and they're going to keep going on.
Let's go back to our little map of history, right? So we're, again, historic earthquakes are in red. The current ones are more yellow or orange, right? And you can see these South Flank earthquakes historically, but we still have them now too, and the South Flank's still moving. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. If we're to, what we have showing on here is just the last week of earthquakes.
Right, just the last week. And then the reds are historical.
Yeah.
But south flank's basically
Still active and moving in that direction, yeah. And you know,
Right.
we could go back to the GPS and show you guys again, but it's the same story. It's nothing really new there.
right.
So, you know, besides the magma still filling underground on the volcanoes, the perhaps I'll call it a lake from now. You know, Mauna Lake is still rising, right? I actually heard several USGS people talking, actually referring to it as a lake. Some people refer to it as a pond still, right? You know, we at one point early on, so that's something to do with being able to see the bottom. And at this point, there's so much stuff in there, and it's actually getting pretty deep, right? It's, you know, on an order of what we got now, 92 feet deep. So, considering all the crud in there, I can't see the bottom, and I call it a lake.
Right. No, that's a lake. That's
Yeah.
a big old lake now.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah.
multiple football fields across and wide, and it's big.
Yeah. So the dimensions as of early March, 330 feet by 660 feet, right?
Wow.
And 92 feet deep, right? And it actually posted this nice photograph comparing those two known circles in the upper left. Those two rocks are easy to pick out. For a picture from November to March, you can really see visually how much is still filling in, because we're almost like the frog in the boiling water, right? We don't every day it rises just a few inches, but eventually, if you compare, it's actually feet away. All right, we good?
Almost. We're showing some of those.
Yeah, I can't quite see the circle over there. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, one was behind us.
All right. So yeah, the new lake continues to grow, and also we see these color changes, and we're still waiting the sampling results from the latest reconnaissance drone mission that HVO flew in to collect some sample water to test, because you can see, like, this is green, this is brown, orange, rust. It's changing, and this isn't uncommon for, you know, these crater lakes, basically, to go through these types of evolutionary processes.
Yeah,
But
that's also in the video.
That's also in the video.
So if you guys want to see Patricia Nadeau, talk about the color changes and what that might mean, what that means at other volcano lakes around the world, check out the USGS highlights video, the 2020 status.
Right.
Yeah.
And other just key notes, roughly 70 degrees Celsius, so it's, you know, hot. You're not going to, that's way hotter than your hot tub. It'll scorch some skin. Yeah. But the interesting thing about it was the pH level. Normally it would be either near neutral or really acidic, and this thing's kind of in the middle at, what was it, like 4.3 or something along those lines,
somewhere
pH.
Yeah.
And that's like, what was it, less than a can of tomato soup in acidity.
It's something. It's fairly mild, yeah.
Pretty mild.
Not that harmful, yeah. And temperature's been steady, right? It hasn't got hotter. Like, we'll be interested to hear the results of the sample, whether it's gotten any more acidic, how quickly it's changing, if it's changing at all. It might not have done that much change, in fact. It might, but the color change is something that we're going to see documented in the chemistry as well. And so the more data points they get, and they plan to kind of go back and do this over and over again, probably not too much, but as much as possible, and be able to put together a whole plot of the change of the chemistry over time. And that's going to maybe be telling if, like, the sulfur emissions increase, for example. And they're still low. There's no sign of anything going up at this point, but that's the temperature will get hotter, not going to be coming closer. Something else you'd like to know. So they got their eye on it, and that's basically the newest thing there is the lake's still rising, and it's still the same temperature, and
right. Not a lot of change on Kilauea overall.
Not doing that much else, yeah.
Yeah. There's one interesting thing in the GPS that maybe we should show.
That's true. Yeah, it's actually been mentioned in the USGS update that during the month of February there's been a slowdown in that rate of filling under the rift zone and the summit, right? And you can see that there, right? And it's very subtle, right? Maybe it's dropped, I don't know, from like a 0.03 meters a month to a 0.02 meters a month kind of situation. But it's still rising slightly.
It's just slower.
Just slower, yes. Yeah, we'll have to wait and keep an eye on that. But
we had a pretty established trend going. And then it ruined it.
Yeah. So we'll see what's going on there, but certainly it doesn't seem like it's building or anything like that, right? No. It seems like it's kind of reached some probably temporary but equilibrium of some kind right there. Some of these plots, more so like on a tilt of Kilauea, like are showing some discontinuities or some kind of errors in them. That's probably because Possibly because there's been a lot of weather on the East Rift in the last week or so, right? Some big storms.
For those that aren't familiar, tilt meters are incredibly sensitive. I mean, those things can get affected by wind, rain, need sun exposure. They're very sensitive instruments, and them going down, it's not that uncommon.
Yeah. And then wind especially can blow the radio transmitters and receivers out of alignment, so sometimes the data is still archived, it's just not getting pushed to the website because it's got to be retrieved in a retroactive way because the thing got misaligned.
Right.
So nothing to worry about there. None of those signals on those plots mean anything to be alarmed about either. And maybe the last thing to talk about. Let's add something else.
Yeah, let's just talk about some of the lower East Rift stuff. So steam movement still happening. You can still smell some of the gases, but mostly you're smelling like dead vegetation and stuff like that coming from the vents, according to USGS. The steam movement predominantly is up at Hawai'i on the Malka side of the eruption, of where the eruptive vents were. Mm-hmm. But really, there's changes everywhere. Even at Fissure 8, the steam movement has slightly changed if you're paying enough attention, and including down rift. Like one thing I noticed today, and I'll show a quick clip of it. Let's bring that up. Oh, and play that. So you can see this area here. That's on the new side. That's been about a month, but it's just small variants. And also this thing, I haven't seen that happen before, but that's happening now. So that's a thing. Normally back here, you see that steam coming off. That's the common steaming area that we're used to. And then you can see up rift. The rift kind of come down. Where this eruption is, and you can see these.
They might not be able to see it behind our fat heads over here. Yeah.
Get rid of that.
Full screen mode. You just drag it and hold it over there.
I'm trying. This is one of those Windows things that just doesn't want to play nice. There we go. We'll go with that. We'll get rid of the markings. Okay, now you can see the rift. Boom.
Hello.
Right? You can see Hawai'i like way up here. And Pu'o would be way up there, even further off screen. And this is Fissure 8, Ahuala'au. And you can see the steam, just little steaming spots. I'm just going full John Madden on you. Boom, boom. And then the lava channel, Leilani Avenue, and there was a helicopter that went down somewhere over here. All right, so that's...
Yeah, not even worth mentioning. No, everyone's fine. But this guy actually does kind of, transition to what I was wanting to talk about next, was recovery, right? Talking about what the conditions are today. People are getting still... unsettled a little bit by the gas, and the recovery is still ongoing. One of the things that, we're looking to promote is the fact that there's a petition going around to restore roads in Puna, the ones that are still covered in lava, obviously, which there are many. I'm not sure how much.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But there's a lot. And so they're asking people to come to in Hilo, County Council chambers on Tuesday, March 10th at 1:30 p.m. wearing red, right, to show support at the Public Works and Mass Transit Committee meeting.
Right, and this is the Yuma Lower Puna group that's putting this together, and it was one of the group. It's been a group that been really spearheaded a lot of these initiatives that have helped get the county moving. One of them was Highway 132, a good example, and they were one of the leaders on that.
Right.
And it's a good group of people that are all impacted from around the area. It also involves some of the largest landowners, holders in the area. So it's kind of a way to get the county to respond. So if you want to try and help that out, it's March 10th at the Hilo County Council chambers.
Right, yeah.
You can also give testimony remotely, but showing up in person would be great.
Right. Yeah. If you do it written, it has to be done in advance as well. Yeah. So.
Right, but you can also go into, I think, like Pahoa County Council
right,
chambers
remotely.
the day
Right,
of and record
that's true.
there and remote it. So yeah, you can help, but if you can't make it and you can just make it to Kona side or Waimea, boom, you can help out like that.
Yeah. So that's essentially what's happening on our two volcanoes. There's nothing to be concerned about. It's still changing, it's still adjusting. They're still interesting. One is kind of adjusting more to the south and, kind of refilling, doing the same thing as before at Kilauea, and Mauna Loa is kind of filling all around, right? And just kind of waiting for something more telling to happen there. That's beyond a little flurry here and there and 1 month on, 1 month off kind of thing. And I really do encourage you guys to go back and watch that highlights video of the 2020 conditions, because it really does cover USGS guys, speaking themselves. And what we've done is kind of combine all different talks and some logical order that kind of takes you through Mauna Loa and Kilauea as well.
Right. So basically what, just reemphasize what Phil did here is he went through all of the talks that USGS had put together over the After Dark in the Park program and over the past 2 months that they've put on, and then consolidated those into some of the most interesting topics that are current, and then streamlined it into an order which makes sense. So it's like storytelling, but these talks are from different people at different times on different days.
5 different talks.
5 different talks. It comes out really well, though. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us. We hope you learned something today, and till next time.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions that we can answer in the future. We got the question about the earthquakes. Happy to answer that. And big shout out to USGS for stepping in and answering the
clearing
question
that
for
up
us.
right away.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. You take it easy and stay classy, Puna. All right.